Alien monsters hide when they sense humans, because we hunt what scares other species. Part 1. Doctor pressed his forearms against the viewing window and tried to control his breathing. Below the research station, the planet Theta 7 rotated slowly, its surface a mix of purple forests and black mountains. To most species in the galaxy, it looked beautiful. It looked like death. His people, though, had evolved from small prey animals. Every instinct in his body told him to run from planets like Theta 7. But he was a scientist, and scientists didn't run. They observed. They recorded. They tried very hard not to think about the 17 researchers who had died down there. "The just took another scout," said Lieutenant, his mandibles clicking nervously. The officer pulled up the video footage on the main screen, forced himself to watch. There was 6 meters of nightmare. It moved on 8 legs, each ending in claws that could cut through steel. Its body was covered in black chitin that shifted colors to match any background. The creature's head had no eyes that anyone could see, but it hunted perfectly in complete darkness. And it was smart. Too smart. In the video, the scout never saw it coming. The warrior was in full combat armor, carrying enough weapons to level a building. None of it mattered. The dropped from above and the video cut to static. "That's the 3rd one this month," said quietly. Turned away from the screen. His species had been exploring space for 2,000 years, and they had learned one important rule. Some planets were not meant for visitors. Theta 7 was one of them. There were apex predators with no natural enemies. They feared nothing. "Why do we keep trying?" asked Doctor, a floating jellyfish-like creature from the water worlds. Her translucent body pulsed with anxious colors. "3 survey teams have given up. Maybe we should too." Couldn't argue. They had been studying Theta 7 for 6 months and learned almost nothing except new ways to die. The Galactic Council wanted to know if the planet could be colonized. The answer was clearly no, but they needed proper documentation. "The new team arrives tomorrow," said. "Perhaps they'll have better ideas." He didn't mention that the new team was human. He had learned it was better not to say that word too early. It made some species nervous. Humans had joined the Galactic Council only 30 years ago. They were new, strange, and deeply confusing to everyone who met them. They came from a planet that other species had classified as a Class 9 death world. Somehow, they had not only survived but thrived on it. They had cities, art, music, and an unsettling lack of common sense about danger. The next day, stood in the docking bay and watched the human shuttle arrive. He had met humans before at various conferences. They were always friendly, always curious, and always touching things they shouldn't touch. The shuttle door opened, and 5 humans emerged. The leader was a small female with dark hair pulled back in a simple tail. She wore a standard research uniform and carried a data pad. "Doctor," she said, walking forward with her hand extended. "I'm Dr. Sarah, thank you for having us." Carefully shook her hand. Humans loved this strange greeting. Their skin was warm and soft, which made them seem vulnerable, but had read the reports. He knew what humans could do. "Welcome to Harmony's Edge," he said. "I trust you reviewed our safety protocols." "Oh yes," Sarah said cheerfully. "Very thorough. This is my team, our tracking specialist, Dr. James Foster, xenobiology, and Tom, our field researchers." Studied them, was tall and lean with dark skin and calm eyes. James was older with gray in his hair, was muscular and alert. Tom was young, maybe barely adult by human standards, with an easy smile. They didn't look dangerous. They looked friendly and excited. "We've prepared a full briefing on this," said. "I must warn you they are extremely dangerous. We've lost 17 researchers." "We read the reports," Sarah said. "They sound fascinating." Fascinating. His translator must have malfunctioned. He led the humans to the briefing room, where Lieutenant was waiting with the video files. "This is the most recent footage of attack," said, his mandibles tight with remembered fear. He played the video of the scout's death. Watched the humans carefully. This was usually when other species understood the danger. This was when they started asking about return shuttles. Instead, Sarah leaned forward, her eyes bright with interest. "Can you play that again?" she asked, slower. Replayed the video, frame by frame. The dropped from above, its claws extended, its body shifting from tree bark brown to strike shadow black. "Oh, it's like a mantis shrimp crossed with a chameleon," Sarah said. "Look at that color-changing ability. And the attack pattern suggests ambush predator behavior but with pack-hunting intelligence. Remarkable." Felt his breathing quicken. She was fascinated, not frightened, fascinated. "Doctor," he said carefully, "this creature killed a fully armed warrior, are one of the strongest species in the galaxy." "I can see that," Sarah said, still studying the screen. "What's the average pack size?" "We believe they hunt in groups of 3 to 5, said, clearly confused by her reaction. "Clever," said, speaking for the first time. His voice was low and calm. "Coordinate attacks, multiple angles. Do they communicate?" "We think so," said. "We've recorded clicking sounds before attacks." "Good to know," made a note on his data pad. "You're not frightened?" asked, her body flashing confused colors. Sarah looked up, seeming genuinely surprised by the question. "Of course we're cautious, but we're here to study them, not fight them. Understanding predator behavior is essential to coexisting with them." "Coexisting?" The mandibles dropped open. "Doctor, these creatures cannot be coexisted with. They kill everything that enters their territory." "Everything so far," Sarah corrected gently. "But that's why we're here. Something's changed in their behavior, hasn't it? Your reports mentioned they're avoiding certain areas." Nodded slowly. "Yes, for the past 2 weeks all activity has ceased in the Northern Valley region. We don't know why." "Then that's where we should start," Sarah said. "Can we go down tomorrow?" The room fell silent, looked at his fellow researchers, had turned a pale, frightened blue. His mandibles were clicking rapidly, a sign of extreme stress. "Doctor," said carefully, "perhaps you should take more time to prepare, review more data. They are not like the predators on your world." Sarah smiled, and it was a kind smile, not mocking. "Doctor, I appreciate your concern, but we've reviewed all your data. We understand the risks. Here once tracked Bengal tigers through the jungle for 3 months, studied grizzly bears in their natural habitat. James has worked with crocodiles, great white sharks, and poisonous snakes. We know predators." "But these are alien predators," protested. "All predators follow certain patterns," said in his calm voice. "They hunt for food, they defend territory, they avoid risks when possible. Understanding those patterns is how we stay safe." Wanted to argue, but he couldn't find the words. These humans spoke about tracking apex predators the way his people spoke about studying plants. It was insane. It was also exactly what the mission needed. "Very well," he said, his voice barely steady. "We'll prepare a landing team for tomorrow morning. I'll accompany you." "You don't have to," Sarah said gently. "Yes," said, straightening his spine, "I do. This is still my research station." That night couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the way Sarah had said "fascinating" while watching a warrior die. He kept thinking about his calm voice discussing Bengal tigers, whatever those were. He accessed the human database and looked up Bengal tigers. The images made his blood go cold. Massive predators with teeth like daggers and claws that could gut prey in seconds, and humans tracked them for research. He looked up grizzly bears, worse. He looked up great white sharks. His hands started shaking. Humans came from a world filled with creatures that would terrify any civilized species. And instead of hiding from them, humans had studied them, tracked them, learned to live alongside them. And sometimes, according to the notes, humans had hunted them. Closed the database and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow, he would go to Theta 7 surface with 5 humans who thought were fascinating. He tried to pray to his ancestors for protection, but he had a strange feeling that they might be the ones who needed it. Part 2. The shuttle ride down to Theta 7's surface was quiet, too quiet. Kept his forearms folded tightly, trying not to show his fear. Across from him, the 5 humans checked their equipment with casual efficiency. They were bringing cameras, tracking devices, sample collectors, and very few weapons. "Shouldn't we have more guns?" asked nervously. The officer had insisted on coming, though his mandibles hadn't stopped clicking since they left the station. "We're not here to shoot anything," Sarah said, adjusting her backpack. "Weapons make predators defensive. We want to observe natural behavior." "Natural behavior is killing," muttered. "Natural behavior is surviving," corrected. "Killing is just one tool for that." The shuttle landed in the northern valley, the area where activity had stopped. As the door opened, smelled the alien air. It was thick and humid, full of strange scents. Every instinct screamed at him to stay inside the shuttle. The humans stepped out first. They moved carefully but not fearfully, their eyes scanning the purple forest around them. Knelt and examined the ground. "Tracks," he said. 3 days old, maybe 4. Large specimen, probably adult." "How can you tell?" asked, forcing himself to step outside. Pointed at marks in the dark soil. 2, they looked like random scratches. Depth of the impression, spacing between steps, claw-wear patterns. This one was moving slowly, cautiously. "Cautiously," clicked his mandibles. "Don't move cautiously, they're apex predators." "Everything moves cautiously sometimes," said Standing. "The question is why." They moved into the forest in a tight group. Sarah had insisted that and stay in the center, with humans on all sides. It should have felt safer, but couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The purple trees were massive, their trunks wider than the shuttle. The canopy above was so thick that the light was dim and strange. People had excellent hearing, developed from listening for predators. He could hear things moving in the branches above. "Contact," said softly. She was looking up into the trees. Followed her gaze and his breathing stopped. Clung to a massive branch about 20 meters above them. It was perfectly still, its body matching the purple-brown of the bark. If hadn't pointed it out, he would never have seen it. "Don't run," Sarah said quietly. "Nobody move quickly." This body rippled, color shifting slightly. It was watching them, studying them. Had seen this before in the videos, right before an attack. But the attack didn't come. "It's assessing threats," said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Looking for weak points." "We're all weak points," hissed. "No," said, "watch." He took one deliberate step forward, away from the group. His movements were slow and controlled. This body shifted, colors rippling faster. Then, impossibly, it moved backward along the branch. It retreated. "Did you see that?" Sarah breathed, her voice full of excitement. "It backed away," James said, already recording everything on his camera. "When advanced, it retreated." Couldn't believe what he was seeing. Didn't retreat. They attacked or they waited to attack. They didn't back down from prey. "Let's keep moving," said. "But slowly. We don't want to chase it off before we learn more." They continued through the forest. Over the next hour they spotted 3 more. Each time the same pattern repeated. The creatures would observe from a distance, their bodies camouflaged. When any of the humans looked directly at them or moved toward them, they would withdraw. When or moved alone, however, the behavior changed. Tested this by stepping away from the group to examine a plant. Immediately, he felt the weight of predatory attention. He looked up and saw a moving along a branch above him, positioning itself for a drop attack. "Come back to the group," Sarah called. As soon as returned to the humans, the stopped moving. It watched for another moment, then melted back into the canopy. "They're hunting us separately," said, his voice shaking. "They know we're the weak ones." "Yes," Sarah said, but she didn't sound frightened. She sounded fascinated. "They can assess threat levels. They know you two are prey species, but they're not sure about us." "Why would they be unsure?" asked. "You're smaller than you have no natural weapons, no armor." "But we're not acting like prey," said, kneeling to examine more tracks. "Prey species run or hide. We're tracking them, following their trails. That's predator behavior." "You think they see you as predators?" asked. "As something," said, "something that doesn't fit their understanding of prey." They made camp that evening in a small clearing. The humans set up a perimeter of cameras and sensors, but no weapons. Sat close to the small heating unit, trying to warm his cold blood. The purple sun had set, and the forest was full of sounds. "I don't understand you," he said to Sarah, who was reviewing the day's footage. "You knew those creatures were watching us. You knew they could attack at any moment, but you weren't afraid." Sarah looked up from her screen. In the dim light, her face was thoughtful. "I was afraid," she said. "Fear is healthy. It keeps you alert. But I wasn't terrified, if that's what you mean." "Why not?" She considered the question. "Because I've spent my life studying predators. I've been close to lions, to wolves, to creatures that could kill me in seconds. And I learned that predators don't waste energy. They don't attack for fun. They attack for food or defense." "They attack everything," said. "No," Sarah said gently. "They attack everything that acts like prey. That's different." Join them carrying a cup of something hot. On Earth, we have a saying: if you run from a bear, you're prey. If you stand still and make yourself look big, you're a problem. "But humans hunt," said from across the camp. "Your records show you hunted many species to extinction." A shadow crossed Sarah's face. "Yes, we did. That's one of our greatest shames, but we learned from it. Now we hunt with cameras, not guns. We track to understand, not to kill." "But you still track," said. "Yes," said, "because that's what we are, pursuit predators. On Earth, our ancestors would chase prey for days, following tracks, waiting for exhaustion. We're built for persistence." "The can sense that," Sarah added. "They might not understand human technology or human culture, but they understand predator instincts. And something in the way we move, the way we watch them, the way we don't run, it registers as predator behavior." They slept in shifts that night. Took the midnight watch with James, the older human. The forest around them pulsed with life, sounds moving through the darkness. "You're very brave," said quietly, "to come to a world like this." James smiled. "My wife says I'm very stupid. Maybe she's right." "Why do you do it?" James was quiet for a moment. "Because the universe is full of wonders, Doctor. Yes, it's also full of dangers. But if we only focused on the dangers, we'd miss all the beauty." He gestured at the forest around them. "Somewhere out there, creatures are living their lives, hunting and hiding, raising young, fighting for territory. It's magnificent." "It's terrifying." "It can be both," James said. The next day, they found what they were looking for. A young, probably not even a year old, had fallen into a deep crack in the rocky ground. It was trapped, unable to climb out, and from the marks on the stone, it had been there for at least a day. "We should leave," said immediately. "If there's a juvenile, the adults will be nearby." "They probably already know we're here," said, scanning the tree line. The young clicked and hissed at them, its body shifting through aggressive colors. It was terrified. "We could help it," Tom said. "Are you insane?" His mandibles were spread wide with shock. In a few years it will kill dozens." "In a few years it will be part of this ecosystem," Sarah said. "And right now it's a scared juvenile that needs help." "Was already studying the crack. I can get down there with a rope. If I approach slowly, I might be able to lift it out." "It will attack you," said with certainty. "Maybe," said, "let's find out." Watched in disbelief as tied a rope around his waist and lowered himself into the crack. The young pressed itself against the far wall, clicking frantically. Its colors shifted rapidly through patterns that even recognized as fear and aggression. "Easy," said, his voice low and calm. "I'm not here to hurt you." He moved slowly, keeping his hands visible. The juvenile snapped at him once but didn't react with aggression. He just waited. "That's it," murmured. "I know you're scared. Your family's probably worried about you." Slowly, carefully, he reached out and got his hands around the creature's thorax. The juvenile struggled but held firm, not hurting it but not letting it hurt him either. "Pull us up," he called. The team hauled on the rope, lifting both and the juvenile out of the crack. As soon as they reached the surface, set the creature down and stepped back. The juvenile stood there, colors shifting in confusion. It looked then at the other humans, then back at the forest. Its clicking changed, becoming less aggressive, more uncertain. Then it ran, disappearing into the trees in seconds. "Well," James said, lowering his camera, "that was interesting." In the trees around them heard movement. Adult watching. He waited for the attack, his heart's pounding. But the attack never came. After a long moment the movement faded, the had withdrawn. "They saw us help their juvenile," Sarah said softly. "They watched us show mercy." "That doesn't make sense," protested. "They're animals, they can't understand mercy." Shook his head. "Predators understand more than we give them credit for. They understand threat and non-threat. They understand pack behavior, and they just saw us help one of their pack." As they hiked back to the shuttle, his mind was racing. Everything he thought he knew about predator behavior was wrong, or perhaps humans were teaching him something new. They were still watching them. He could feel it. But they weren't attacking. They were observing, learning, trying to understand these strange creatures who tracked like predators but helped like pack members. When they reached the shuttle, turned back to look at the forest one last time, he thought he saw movement in the trees, a ripple of color that might have been or maybe it was just the wind. "Ready to go home?" Sarah asked. "Yes," said, but as the shuttle lifted off, he realized something. This wasn't the end of the mission, it was just the beginning. Part 3. The report caused chaos in the Galactic Council. Presented his findings to a chamber full of representatives from 47 species. He showed them the videos of retreating from humans. He showed them the footage of helping the juvenile. He showed them 3 weeks of data that proved the impossible. Apex predators feared humans. "This is an isolated incident," declared Ambassador, a large reptilian from a warrior culture. "One species of predator on one world. It proves nothing." "Actually," said a quiet voice from the back of the chamber, "it's not isolated at all." Doctor, a crystalline being from the Silicon worlds, floated forward. She projected data across the chamber's main screen. "I've been researching human-predator interactions across 17 different worlds. The pattern is consistent. On Vex Prime, the shadow tigers avoid human settlements. On Razor's Edge, the sky hunters won't approach human research camps. On the Trench, Leviathans surface to observe human submarines but never attack." The chamber erupted in clicking, buzzing, and various sounds of disbelief. "Why wasn't this reported earlier?" demanded a council member. "Because we didn't recognize it as a pattern," said. "Each research team thought their experience was unique. But when you compile all the data, the conclusion is clear. Predators across the galaxy treat humans differently than other species." Ambassador Rachel Torres, the human representative, stood. She was a small woman with gray hair and calm eyes. "The council asked for an explanation," she said. "I'm prepared to provide one, but I warn you, it may be uncomfortable." "Proceed," said the council leader, a floating orb of light named Lumen. Rachel took a breath. "Humanity evolved on a Class 9 death world. For millions of years we were prey. We were hunted by creatures with bigger teeth, stronger bodies, and faster reflexes. By all rights, we should have gone extinct." She paused, letting that sink in. "But we didn't. Instead, we became hunters ourselves, not through strength but through persistence. We would track prey for days, following them until they collapsed from exhaustion. We learned to use tools to work in groups to plan and strategize. We became pursuit predators. Many species are pursuit predators, interrupted. Not like us, Rachel said quietly. Our ancestors would chase prey across entire continents. They would track wounded animals for weeks. They would return to the same hunting grounds generation after generation, learning every trail, every water source, every hiding place. She pulled up images on the screen. Lions, bears, wolves, great white sharks, crocodiles. These are some of Earth's apex predators. For thousands of years they killed us, so we studied them. We learned their patterns. We tracked them through every environment on our planet. And eventually, some of them learned to fear us. Not because we were stronger, but because we never ever gave up. Watched the council members shift uncomfortably. He understood why. What Rachel was describing wasn't just persistence. It was something deeper, something that made prey species like him very nervous. You're saying humans are apex predators, Lumen said. I'm saying we learn to think like them, Rachel replied. And the galaxy's predators recognize that. When it looks at a human, it doesn't see prey. It sees something that tracks, that plans, that persists. It sees competition. This is ridiculous, said his scales bristling. Humans are weak. You have no natural weapons, no armor, no venom. Neither did our ancestors, Rachel said. But we had something else. We had the ability to understand our enemies. She pulled up the footage of helping the juvenile. This is what really confuses them. Predators understand other predators. They understand the hunt, the kill, the competition for resources. But we do something they don't expect. Sometimes we help. Sometimes we study instead of kill. Sometimes we show mercy. That's insanity, said. Showing mercy to a creature that will grow up to kill you. Sarah, who had been invited to speak, stepped forward. Is it? We showed mercy to wolves and they became dogs, our partners for thousands of years. We showed mercy to wild cats and they became companions. We learned that not every predator has to be an enemy. But you also hunted species to extinction, a council member pointed out. Yes, Sarah said, her voice heavy. We did, and we learned from those mistakes. We learned that killing every predator doesn't make us safer, it makes ecosystems collapse. So now we hunt with cameras instead of guns. We track to understand instead of destroy. Stood, if I may speak. The council leader gestured for him to continue. I am, said. My people evolved as prey. Everything in my genetics tells me to run from predators. But I spent 3 weeks on Theta 7 with a human team. I watched them track with less fear than I have watching recorded footage. He pulled up his own recordings. At first I thought they were insane, but then I started to understand. They weren't fearless. They were informed. They knew predator behavior. They respected it. And somehow the sense that respect. Respect, scoffed. Predators don't understand respect. Don't they? Asked, stepping up beside Sarah. On Earth, we have documented cases of predators choosing not to attack. Lions that adopted orphan prey animals. Wolves that integrated with domestic dogs. Sharks that allowed divers to swim beside them. Predators are intelligent. They can learn. They can adapt. And they can recognize other predators, added. Not just by physical characteristics, but by behavior, confidence, lack of fear, strategic thinking. These are predator traits, and humans display all of them. The council chamber was silent, could see the fear in his fellow representatives. For species that had spent millions of years as prey, this was disturbing news. Humans weren't just another species. They were something that predators avoided. What do you propose we do with this information? Lumen asked. Rachel Torres smiled. We're already doing it. Human research teams are being requested for death world studies across the galaxy. Our presence seems to create safe zones. Predators avoid us, which means other species can work nearby safely. You want to weaponize human behavior, said. No, Rachel said firmly. We want to use it for research and conservation. There are hundreds of death worlds that we can't study because the predators are too dangerous. With human teams present, those worlds become accessible. But you're not soldiers, a council member said. You can't protect everyone. We don't want to be soldiers, Sarah said. We want to be scientists. The protection is a side effect of our presence, not the goal. Over the next few months, the requests flooded in. Research stations across the galaxy wanted human teams. Death worlds that had been abandoned were being reopened for study. And everywhere humans went, the pattern held. Predators maintained distance. Returned to Theta 7 with a new research station, this time built on the surface. They didn't attack during construction. They watched from the forest, their colors shifting with what might have been curiosity. Sarah's team became permanent residents. They continued studying, though, documenting their behavior, learning their communication patterns. And something remarkable happened. They started leaving gifts. It began with a carcass left near the research station's entrance. Then another. The humans recognized it as predator behavior, one pack acknowledging another. They're testing us, said, examining the fresh kill, seeing if we'll take the food or compete for it. Sarah made the decision to leave the carcasses untouched. We have our own food. Let them know we're not competing for their prey. The gift stopped after that, but the observation continued. Adult would bring juveniles to the edge of the research station's clearing, seeming to teach them about the strange creatures who tracked but didn't hunt. One day was working outside when he heard a familiar clicking sound. He looked up to see a watching him from the tree line. It was the juvenile they had rescued, now nearly adult-sized. The scars on its thorax were still visible. The creature looked at him for a long moment, then clicked once and disappeared into the forest. Did that just happen? Asked the humans nearby. I think it just said hello, Tom said, grinning. News of the Theta 7 success spread quickly. Within a year, death worlds across the galaxy had human research teams. The species that had once been too dangerous to approach were being studied, documented, and understood. But not everyone was happy about it. We should be using this, argued in another council session. Human presence could give us military advantages on death worlds. We could establish bases where predators won't attack. That would be a mistake, Rachel said firmly. The moment we weaponize this behavior, it will stop working. Predators aren't stupid. They'll learn that humans mean danger and they'll attack preemptively. Ambassador Torres is correct, Lumen said. We've reviewed the research. Human effectiveness depends on non-threatening behavior. The moment humans start acting like soldiers, the pattern will break. So we're just going to study monsters, demanded, while they could be used to expand our territory. We're going to learn from them, Sarah said, standing to address the council. Every predator species has something to teach us. They have complex social structures we're just beginning to understand. The shadow tigers of Vex Prime have communication methods that could revolutionize our signal technology. The trench leviathans might hold clues to deep space adaptation. You're treating them like they're valuable, said. They are valuable, Sarah replied. Every species is valuable. That's something humanity learned the hard way. When we hunted our predators to near extinction, we almost destroyed ourselves. We learned that predators aren't just monsters. They're essential parts of their ecosystems. Stood again. I've spent a year living near. A year ago, I would have said they were mindless killing machines. Now I know better. They're intelligent, social, and surprisingly complex. And yes, they're dangerous, but danger doesn't mean worthless. He looked around the chamber at all the different species. Humanity has taught me something. Fear is natural, but it shouldn't be the only thing we feel. Wonder is important too. Curiosity is important. Understanding is important. Even understanding monsters, a council member asked. Especially understanding monsters, said. Because once you understand them, they stop being monsters. They become neighbors. The vote was close, but the council ruled in favor of continued human-led predator research. Death worlds would remain research zones, not military targets. 5 years later, sat in his office on Theta 7 and watched the forest. A small group of moved through the clearing, not hunting, just passing through. One of the juveniles paused to look at the research station, waved, and the juvenile's colors shifted to something that might have been acknowledgement. His door opened and Sarah walked in, carrying 2 cups of tea. "Thinking deep thoughts?" she asked, handing him a cup. "Thinking about fear," said. 5 years ago, I was terrified of this place. Now I have lunch here and watch walk past my window." "You've learned to understand them," Sarah said. "No," corrected. "You taught me to understand them. You taught me that predators aren't just eating machines. They're animals trying to survive just like us." Sarah smiled. "That's all we ever wanted to teach." Outside, the sun was setting, turning the purple forest into shades of deep violet. In the trees could see more settling in for the night. They weren't hiding. They weren't hunting. They were just living. And nearby, a small research station full of humans documented it all. These strange primates from Earth who had forgotten how to be prey and convince.